Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, this channel is all about my journey throughout CRNA School. So today's video is going to be some CRNA School FAQs or frequently asked questions. If you guys are interested, let's get into the nitty gritty. So I went through a few schools' websites to look for their frequently asked questions tab and just look through and see what most people ask, and that way I can make a clear, concise amount of questions that we can go through, and if they help you, I hope they do. That way maybe you don't have to go looking for those answers. They're right here in this video. All right, so let's get started. So the first question is, can you apply to CRNA School with less than the required ICU experience? And the answer to that question is yes, as long as by the time you matriculate into school, you have the 1 year minimum that they require. So that being said, the application cycle, it takes a while. So usually, let's say, example, school A opens the application in January and closes the application window in May. So you apply by that time, but you only really have 6 months experience. By the time they give you an interview, let's say June, maybe July, you have a little more experience, but by the time you start the following January, you more than likely will have a year. So as long as you will have a year by the time you start school, you can apply with the amount of experience you have. The next question is, do I need the CCRN? The answer to that is maybe. So some schools make it a requirement. So like you actually have to upload your CCRN certificate into your application when you apply, but some schools tell you it's recommended. Now, let's talk about what they mean by recommended. When they say CCRN not required, recommended, it means that more than likely all the applicants have their CCRN. So it's either that or about, let's say 97% of the students that apply have it. So you don't want to be that candidate that's between, one person or the other, and the other has a CCRN and you don't. Like, you have the same credentials except one has a CCRN, then obviously they have a one up over you. So in my opinion, I recommend getting the CCRN just to make sure that you're a competitive applicant. What ICU experience is the best? This question is asked quite a lot, and actually there's a lot of stigma that goes behind it. A lot of people view CVICU as the gold standard when it comes to applying to CRNA School, and I will say that I think it will definitely help you. If you have the opportunity to go to CV, then do it. But let's say you've had the majority of your experience in SICU or MICU or Neuro ICU. Don't go and change your ICU experience just to get CVICU. This is what I feel, because the more you're in a department or a unit, the more you want to know, the more you want to learn, the more comfortable you feel with the people around you, the more comfortable you feel with that patient population, the harder assignments you'll get. If you go to CVICU maybe a few months before you apply, just to say you had some CV under your belt, they're going to give you easy patients. You might even still be on orientation, So I don't recommend switching if that's what you're thinking, like, oh, I'm in this ICU, I think I should go to CVICU. Any ICU is okay. But if you're starting out and you have a goal in mind, like, oh, what ICU should I go to? You should definitely put CVICU on the top of your radar, but any ICU will do. I came in with NICU experience, and a lot of schools don't view that as ICU. So I'm just saying that any ICU will do. If they take neonatal ICU, they'll take you no matter what. Next question is, do we need the GRE? How do you prepare for the GRE? What the heck, the GRE? So the GRE is a standardized test, kind of like the SATs when you were going to college. But this is for master's programs. So graduate level exams, you have to do this, the GRE, the graduate record exam. So I think that's what it is. Yeah. So the GRE is a standardized test of crap. It's horrible. I hated it. I don't really want to talk about it much more than what I'm saying now in this video, but some schools have done away with it. So keep that in mind when you're applying. If you're adamant on not taking the GRE, I'm just saying you're closing your doors just a little bit, because that doesn't allow you to apply to all schools, because you don't meet the minimum requirements. If the minimum requirement is to have the GRE. And then some schools give a GRE requirement score, like the GRE Also, it has to be above a 300. So my recommendation, take the time, focus on it. Give yourself a month or two if you really don't want to do it. Just give yourself some time to review how they ask their questions. Just take the exam. That way you have, one door open, one avenue that you can apply to. Don't just limit yourself to apply to schools that don't accept the GRE. I just think it's, for me, the smartest option you can do because it's a very competitive field to apply to. Piggybacking on that, the next question is, how hard is it to get accepted? So I actually looked at some statistics from 2020, so it's a little outdated, saying that only 10% of applicants actually get accepted. That's like very competitive. So if you're gonna limit yourself by not doing the GRE, you're limiting yourself in general because the application process is tough to get in, and now you have one less thing on your resume. So I think it's very hard to get in. The hardest part, in fact, once you get accepted, it's smooth sailing from there because obviously you worked hard to get there. So you're gonna put all your efforts to make sure you pass. But I think the hardest part is getting in. Next question, can you work while in CRNA school? And the answer to that is maybe. So some schools actually make a clause that says, no, you can't be working and you have to sign it. And if you get caught, you can get kicked out of the program. But some schools also tell you it's not recommended. Okay, that's fine. So my suggestion is, if you want to work, or you're thinking like once you're in the program, you're like, yeah, I think I can handle something like a couple times a month, then that is to your discretion. You know yourself better than anybody. So if you think that you can handle 1 or 2 shifts a month, or maybe a little more, whatever you're into, do it. Because I've done it for the last 9 months. I'm working 2 per diems and I'm managing just fine. Next question is, it's not really a question, it's just a word, shadowing. So a lot of people struggle to get those shadowing hours. So do the schools give you avenues so that you can shadow? The answer to that is no. It is on your own. You have to set up your shadowing hours, coordinate with whatever hospital that you're going to be shadowing at, or whatever CRNA that's going to allow you to shadow them. When I was doing my shadowing, I had to submit an application to the hospital that I worked at. In order to get approved, I had to pay for an application. I had to do a background check. I had to submit a resume. I had to submit a letter of intent. So, it's not just like, hey, do you think I can shadow you? Like, there's a process to it. So definitely keep that in mind. If you have a timeline that you want to apply to, look into where you want to be doing your shadowing hours and see what the process is to get in. Since COVID, it's been a little more strict. So keep that in mind. Next question. Is CRNA school hard? So I actually made a video on this. I'll link it somewhere in this video, but the answer is yes and no. So CRNA school is hard because it's like you're learning more in depth than you've ever learned before. You're learning disease processes at the cellular level. You're learning how drugs work at the receptor level. There's just so much more to it. It's not just, oh, I can pay attention in class and pass. It's definitely not there. You definitely have a lot to study. It's a lot of material. So it is hard, but it is doable. Next question, how much studying do you do in a week? Hours, I don't really actually clock in and clock out like I said I was going to, but I would say I give in a week's time between 40 to 60 hours easily. That's not all in big chunks. I've realized that I do better with short breaks or some breaks that I've earned. So if I can study for 2-3 hours, I'll take a 30-minute break because I earned it. But then if you calculate all the hours that I've put in, it's about that 40 to 60 hours a week. So it's a job. So based on the Council of Accreditation, how many cases, how many anesthesia hours do you need to sit for your boards? So as of right now, I believe it's 600 cases and 2,000 anesthesia hours. But what I've read in most school websites, like with the FAQs, that their students get well above that. There really isn't a chance where you don't get your hours. That's from what I hear. If anything, the hardest part I think is to obtain peds hours, because not all locations have like ped centers, pediatric centers. But if you're able to get into a children's hospital during your shadowing experience, like your clinical experience, then you should be fine. So more than likely you'll have the case numbers and the anesthesia hours you need to sit for your boards. Next question. Am I required to do a dissertation? So as of 2022, it's been, you know, the gold standard to transition all CRNA schools to the DNP or DNAP. And the answer to that question is yes. You will be doing a large paper that you have to defend. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what differentiates you from a master's student. And like I said, as of 2022, they've implemented that. Let's talk about classes to retake, or, you know, that they want classes refreshed within the last 5 to 10 years. From what I read and researched, the majority of the classes that you will need to refresh is going to be your chemistry, your statistics. Some actually prefer that you have your patho, your pharm, physics, and health assessment within the last 10 years. So that, I'm not saying to go out and take those classes right now. I'm just saying that, you know, based on your school, you have to look into what they require. But from what I noticed is statistics and chemistry. So check when you took your statistics and chemistry, and then check in with the school that you want to apply to and see if it's outdated. And if it is, then obviously you want to retake those classes before you apply. But just keep that in your mind that you might have to retake some classes. Next question. How to finance CRNA school. So I am going to be doing a detailed video on how I'm financing CRNA school, but I don't want to be someone to tell you this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, because I've seen a lot of friends that they do travel assignments for, you know, a year before they start, save up all their money, like pretty much for 3 years, and live off of that. I didn't have that luxury. I worked hard. I worked a lot of overtime, and I was able to save enough to pay off my car and all my other expenses. So I started school with like my debt at a minimum. Pretty much all I had was an old student loan, which obviously once you start school, it's put on deferment. So yeah, I just and other expenses, like living expenses that are constant, those aren't going to go anywhere. But like as far as debts, I made it my best effort to pay them off before I started school. So my recommendation is just set yourself up for what you think will be the most successful for you, because it's going to be 3 years, sometimes no work. So just keep that in mind. Another thing I want to mention is Grad Plus loans. So when you set up your financing with the school that you're going to be attending, you have the option to get federal subsidized and unsubsidized loan, and then you also have the option to do a Grad Plus loan. If your choice is to take the maximum, just remember that the Grad Plus loan has a higher % interest. So even though it's deferred until after you graduate, you know, the interest for the federal subsidized and unsubsidized, I think right now is in the 5s. Yeah, I think it's in the 5%. But then the Grad Plus loan is going to be toward 8%. So I don't know exactly how the schools structure it, because some schools don't allow you to take that. You might actually have to do private loans, you know, depending on your FAFSA, I guess, your student aid like requirements, like based on your income taxes. But let's say you do qualify for those loans. You have the 5% for the federal subsidized and unsubsidized, and 8% more or less for the Grad Plus loan. Just keep in mind that there's a chance that even if you take both loans, you might not be, you might still have to pay some school out of pocket depending on what the tuition cost is for that school. So keep that in mind. If you're planning your finances ahead of time, you might need the Grad Plus more. So, you know, I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm still trying to manage doing the federal subsidized and unsubsidized without touching the Grad Plus loan, because then I know, okay, let's say I can't make ends meet, I can always ask for more, versus having to be capped out and like kind of like thinking I might have to do a personal loan. So either way, I'm gonna live off loans, and that's fine. After I finish school, I will make, you know, this debt-free journey to pay that off, and that is a bridge that I will get there eventually, and I will tackle that eventually. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope those were some of your FAQs. If you think of any that I didn't mention in this video, please put them in the comments. I'm more than happy to give advice. That's literally what this channel is for. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye!